A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a dramatic display of dissent, tens of thousands of demonstrators took to the streets across Southern California this past Saturday for No King's Day, a protest aimed at President Trump. The event was characterized by a stark contrast to the celebrations occurring simultaneously in Washington, D.C., where Trump's birthday coincided with a lavish parade celebrating the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. Protesters in California depicted Trump as an aspiring monarch, condemning his recent military deployments to quell protests that have erupted in response to aggressive immigration raids. The imagery was powerful. Signs referencing the nation's founding in 1776, crossed-out crowns, and flags from various nations including the U.S., Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador. The message was clear: protest is patriotic. In downtown Los Angeles alone, around 30,000 people marched, with many holding signs that symbolized their grievances against the administration. Michelle Verne, a 56-year-old participant, carried a shredded copy of the Constitution, highlighting her belief that the current administration is violating fundamental rights. "We've had other administrations deport people, but not like this," she stated, referencing the recent immigration enforcement actions that have swept up families indiscriminately. Across the country, over 2,000 protests were scheduled, with Southern California hosting dozens, including significant marches in Woodland Hills, Beverly Hills, and West Hollywood. The atmosphere was festive in some areas, with State Senator Maria Elena Durazo even dancing with protesters at Plaza Olvera. However, the emotional weight of the protest was palpable, particularly in areas like Torrance, where the deportation of a 9-year-old boy and his father had struck a nerve within the community. Retired librarian Lori Pisano expressed her dismay, saying, "Democracy is important, and that's not what's happening." In Pasadena, crowds surged at the intersection of Colorado Boulevard and Lake Avenue, leading to police intervention to manage the growing numbers. While the majority of demonstrators were peacefully protesting, a small contingent of pro-Trump supporters gathered to counter the anti-Trump sentiment, advocating for the president's immigration policies. The Trump administration has justified its aggressive immigration actions as necessary for public safety, but many argue that innocent individuals are being swept up in the raids, creating a climate of fear among immigrants and even citizens. In Huntington Beach, a pro-Trump stronghold, opposing groups shouted slogans at each other, highlighting the deep divisions within the community. Activists in West Hollywood voiced their opposition to Trump's policies, particularly those affecting the LGBTQ+ community. Magdalena Jameson, a 29-year-old resident, articulated the sentiment of many, stating, "He portrays us as un-American, as people who hate this country just because we come out against him." As the protests intensified, tensions escalated in downtown Los Angeles, where a crowd of several hundred gathered around a federal building guarded by U.S. Marines. The LAPD issued dispersal orders as tensions flared, leading to clashes between protesters and law enforcement. Reports emerge of police using less lethal munitions and tear gas to control the crowd, with protesters expressing outrage over the aggressive tactics. Violet Martinez, a 23-year-old protester, described the chaos as officers charged into the crowd, leading to injuries and panic. The protests, which began in response to news of potential immigration raids, have evolved into a broader condemnation of the Trump administration's policies and actions. Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles made a public plea for peaceful demonstrations, warning that the eyes of the world were on the city and urging protesters to refrain from violence. The political landscape in California has become increasingly contentious, with state leaders pushing back against Trump's actions. A federal judge recently ruled that the White House must return control of the National Guard to Governor Gavin Newsom, although the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has temporarily paused that order. In a show of solidarity, the Senate Democratic caucus joined California Senator Alex Padilla in urging Trump to withdraw military personnel from Los Angeles, labeling the deployment an abuse of executive authority. As the protests continue, the divide between state leaders and the Trump administration appears to widen, with the governor and mayor calling for a return to democratic norms and local control. Trump, however, has defended his actions, claiming that his military presence has saved Los Angeles from chaos. The events of the past week have solidified a growing movement against the president's policies, with demonstrators asserting their right to protest as a fundamental aspect of democracy. As tensions remain high, the situation in Southern California serves as a microcosm of the national debate surrounding immigration, civil rights, and the balance of power between federal and state authorities. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.